YouTube launched back in 2005, 2006, really started picking up in 2007. At that point, I had just graduated college and I began using this little program called Finale Songwriter on my little PC laptop, and I could write in notes and I could write lyrics and it would play it back and it would sound, really dinky. But eventually, my brother actually got into filmmaking and he had an iMac. I realized that it had a program called Soundtrack Pro that could actually record music. And at that point in time, it just blew my mind that a computer in your house could record music. So I actually borrowed his computer, brought it to my room, flipped it upside down, hit record, played a piano part about 5 times until I got the whole thing perfect, sang over that, and that was my first recorded song. Fast forward to the YouTube stuff, once I got my own computer and GarageBand and I started recording, I learned about remixing and sampling and things like that. So I got really interested in it and I said, why don't I just put some remixes up on YouTube? I didn't think, honestly, anyone would really come across them or anything like that because I was like, well, nobody knows me. But, I tagged what they were. I was a big Mac fan, still am a big Mac fan. So I took all the sounds from Mac, the error sounds, the startup sound, the chime, any kind of sound that would come out of the Mac. Basically, I took the startup chime from some older Macs and sampled them across a keyboard. When you sample it across a keyboard, you have low notes and high notes, just like you were to play a piano, except instead of a piano sound, it's the sound that you put in there. So I put that together with a lot of the other sounds, put up images of Macs just going by, I'm not even in the video. I did the proper hashtagging, as we now call it, but I think it's just tagging back then. So, put all the tags in there so people could find it. And I noticed that there were some other videos floating around that a lot of people had done of Windows computer sounds remixes. And I noticed that, well, there was no Mac computer sounds remix, or maybe there was one, but I didn't really like it. So I created my own, and I think that's one of the reasons that it got to be semi-famous, is because there was not really a Mac computer sounds remix. So I kind of found a niche, if you will, that wasn't being represented, and then I put some time and effort into it and released it, and that's where we got to this.
Came. I mean, you built it and people found
I built it and they came, yeah. And part of that is because YouTube, continued to grow and continued to have people look for videos and use it as a source for music. This is way before YouTube Music was even out, but people were just, watching videos and listening to the music at the same time. I kind of started off wanting to be a songwriter and realized that it was really hard. And
yeah, I noticed.
I also had this knack for composing, and I got really lucky and actually got in with a production company out here in Los Angeles called Bass Productions, but this was back when I was living in Maryland. And so I was writing these tracks for Bass Productions and realized that now I had in my head, I want to be a composer and I want to go toward that route. And I just wanted to really do some self-promotion to let people know what I do. I had actually just composed these film score trailers for a library. And I had already submitted them to the library, but I was thinking, what can I do? I thought they were pretty good, and I was thinking, what can I do to actually make them well known and let people know that I'm actually the person that wrote them, because if they go into a library, it might get placed somewhere, but nobody would probably really know that it's me. I didn't dress up. I had like a hoodie on in the video. I was in my parents' house at the time, but I had my my KeyStation Pro keyboard and my Mac and a few things set up, and I just put my phone on a tripod and just started recording. So it was, the hardest part was actually, because I'm not actually composing in the video, I'm playing to the composition, but I had to shoot it so that everything matched up. And that was kind of the hard part. But once all the editing got done, released it, and again, I wasn't expecting anyone to come think like, oh, composition. It's like, I don't think anybody would be interested in that, but it actually did pretty well as well. And I got work from that, people contacting me, and it's really been great. When I got the gig with Bass Productions, the production company out here, I was writing for them, and I was only writing for them at that time, so for about a year. But actually, because of the film score video, there were other companies that reached out. And so I'm still working with some of those companies. They'll come to me with what they call music briefs, which are, we need classic Italian music that runs for about 2 minutes. So a lot of times I'll write to a brief, compose to it, and submit it, and then they will try to get it placed. As I began to write different tracks, I got into different libraries, and those libraries helped place my music into different venues. For instance, my music has appeared in The Daily Show, formerly with Jon Stewart, now with Trevor Noah, the Oprah Winfrey Network, crime shows like The First 48, reality shows like Impractical Jokers, all kinds of different stuff. Strangely, a lot of the tracks that do really well are what we call dramedy tracks. They're just like quirky classical music. Pretty fun to make. A lot of plucked strings, a lot of harps and celestas. I think that's how you say it. Mm-hmm. Yep. But those do pretty well. So I'll just write a lot of those sometimes, and then it's just kind of great to see where they end up. When I was first starting out, I was still finding my grounding, so I was writing a lot of what I think would work, and eventually someone would ask for that type of music, and I would say, oh great, I have some of these tracks. Now, I feel like I kind of run around like a headless chicken because I get multiple requests, and I find myself trying to write to these different requests in time to at least provide 1 to 2 tracks to each request. But that's what I do. So mostly, I probably say 80% is now just people asking me for the type of music that they want. I'll compose it, try to get it to them. And more it's getting into actually more modern music where they want a pop track, and then they want a pop track with vocals. And that's one of the reasons I moved here to Los Angeles, is to find other artists, producers to work with and collaborate with. Back in 3rd grade, I was able to pick up my first instrument, which is a violin. And I was actually mad at the time because I wanted to pick up an instrument earlier than that, but my elementary school said, no, you have to get to 3rd grade before you can pick up an instrument. So I picked up the violin because I was thinking, I don't really want to be blowing in anything all the time, so the violin seemed like the most kind of simplest. But of course, that was really hard to learn because it was ergonomical, but I stuck with it. And it was actually great because being in orchestras and that environment where you're hearing other parts just being played in practice allowed me to hear what an orchestra actually sounds like and what the individual part sounds like. So when I compose orchestral music today, I know what a horn part sounds like or what a woodwind part sounds like. So that really helped. Picked up piano when I was 10 and then just kept going with that. But musician, the name actually is Muzeishen. And I actually thought about my artist name for a while, and I was thinking like, what would be just a really cool jazzy name? But then I kind of came back to who is it that I actually want to be as an artist? And I think today, you know, the music industry is a lot of times centered on the image of the artist, the things that the artist is doing. And I kind of wanted to take a step back from that and really just have the music represent me. I just want to be the musician, the person that is creating the music, and take a step back. There's actually another really successful artist named Subtract. I think he spells it SBTKRT. Mm-hmm. He kind of has like the same idea where he's like, I'm going to put this music forward. I want to kind of stay out of the element and not be in the spotlight and just have the music represent and speak for me. So I really like that idea, and I had the same idea. So I call myself musician, and so far it's been pretty good. I was actually a music minor in college, and I actually had played a recital, but I was super nervous, still did okay, but I realized that performing in front of people just wasn't probably my foray, but I really loved creating music. And at the same time that I found that I wanted to do that was when I discovered that Finale Songwriter program. And so composing for me was just the best thing. You know, it was wonderful. It was like I could sit behind the scenes, I could create music and go forth. At the same time, I'm a person that likes a challenge and doesn't like to do the same thing over and over. So I wanted to expand out from that, as well as be known for my music, because a lot of the guys that are writing for TV and sometimes even films, our names don't really appear in the credits. You don't really know that it's us. Even for show opening music, you might not see our name come up. Yeah. So I wanted to, one, create different types of music and be known for the type of music that I create. So I'm starting to learn how to be an artist, do the marketing and promotion, and kind of go down that avenue of being a producer turned artist. There's a lot of producer turned artists now, like Odessa, Hermitude. You know, they're guys that are producers really, but they're also artists because they are the act. When I came up starting to write music, I had no outboard gear. I didn't even know what outboard gear was. All I knew was I had a computer, I had a keyboard, and I was making music. I started out in a program called GarageBand, and there were specific instruments that I could pull from, there were specific effects, and that was it. One of the biggest changes is just the improvement in the in-the-box type things that you can use. The compressors, the reverbs, the effects. As I gained more and more toys, as I call them, and actually there is a company called Sound Toys, which I also use. As I gained more and more of these, it helped me to develop and shape my sound in a much different way than I ever could have thought possible. So that, for me, writing over the years has been the biggest change, is just the ability of what you're able to do inside of a computer because of the processing power and the different types of plugins that are out there. If someone asks me for a hip-hop / electronic song, I'm going to listen to some influences. I'm still going to try to make it my own, but it still has to fit into that genre and feel like that. The really cool thing about my musician project and writing songs is that I don't have to sound like anything else. That's also the beauty of it. One of the things that was a challenge but really fun at the same time was trying to hone in on what is my actual sound, what does that sound like? And it's a hard thing to do because you know what you want it to sound like, but at the same time you don't. Sometimes you'll make something and you'll be like, oh, that kind of sounds like it, but I think I want to do a little bit more of this. And it's a lot of experimentation until you get to a sound that's like, that's the sound that I want. That's what I really like. I would say Right. Early on, I didn't know what might happen to some of the tracks that I had or where they might end up, but I was writing, one, because I loved it, and two, each newer thing or each next few months or each next year, my writing got better and better. When I listen to tracks now that I made in 2010, I'm like, what was I doing? Kind of more from the mixing standpoint, but I was like, what was I doing? But back then, I didn't hear it. I thought it sounded great. But you know, you get so much better just by doing what you have. And just because you missed this opportunity, that opportunity, it's okay. Keep going. And one of the biggest things I learned out here, moving to LA, is it's not usually a big thing that will make you successful. It's a lot of small successes that stack up. And those small successes can only happen when you're actually ready, when you've been practicing, preparing, writing, and getting your work out there. Obviously, I moved here because it is one of the music cities, but most of my music contacts and everything that I've accrued up until now, I did in the state of Maryland, in a city just north of DC. So the internet now is pretty amazing. I mean, you can take your full uncompressed track and send it to someone in seconds. The benefit to moving to a music city, New York, Nashville, LA, is because you will meet other people that you can collaborate with, that you'll have a synergy with, that can make your work stand out or even better, and network and have people that you can go to help your career, possibly more so than one of the other cities. But again, it's not impossible to do it from one of these three cities. One of the hard parts about being a composer is doing what they call scoring to picture. And I had this one project where I was writing music for a trailer, and I had the trailer and I was, doing all the hits on all the scene changes and things like that. And the person that was mixing it was saying that my music wasn't lining up with it. And there's a lot of technical reasons as to probably why it was happening. But I kind of got frustrated, and I actually took a video of my screen and said, look, this is my music and this is the video and all the hits are happening. But eventually we got it figured out, it got taken care of. But sometimes, you think you've done it enough to where you got it, but that technology will just turn around on you. I met you, Judd, at NAMM, which is where you go to discover all kinds of music stuff. And The whole panel was actually talking about how it's getting harder for songwriters to continue making a living off of songwriting because of the digital space out there. But when you mentioned your app, I was like, wow. And I remember I went up to you afterward and I met you, gave me your card, and I immediately downloaded it because it was really interesting. It was like, cool, so this is like the next space that songwriters can go to. So one, it's great because it's free and you can stream music that is unreleased. If you've ever kind of listened to the radio and you've thought that, man, they keep playing the same songs over and over, qWaqq is where you want to go to actually hear something new, hear something unreleased. It can be one of your gems, and it'll be pretty much undiscovered.